Welcome back. Today we are looking at social development in middle and late childhood. We're going to look at two sides of the same coin today. In this first video, we're going to talk about aggression and bullying, and then in the next video, we're going to talk about friendship and the functions of friendship during this childhood stage. So let's jump in. Aggression is something that I'm fairly familiar with. It was one of the variables that I looked at in my dissertation research, and so I have some experience with the literature that's out there on aggression, and really have a fondness for looking at this variable in children and adolescents especially. So when we talk about aggression, I think the natural assumption that people have is that boys are always going to be more aggressive than girls, and to some extent that's probably accurate, but I think it really depends on how we define aggression, and there are different types of aggressive behavior that I want us to know about. There's overt aggression, which is going to include physical and verbal types of aggression that directly harm or threaten to harm another person. So when a child pushes or hits or kicks, that's physically being aggressive. And so physical aggression is harming or threatening to harm another child. Verbal aggression, that would be overt, would be name calling or insults, those types of things that are directly harming or threatening to harm that child. So overt aggression, including physical and verbal types of aggression that directly harm or threaten to harm a child. The other type is covert aggression. Covert aggression is going to include relational or verbal aggression that uses the relationship itself as the tool to harm or threaten harm. And so it's not as direct as just punching another child would be. It's going to include things like rumor spreading, threatening to withdraw friendship from someone, or even just excluding a particular person for any number of reasons. What we know about these types of aggression is that physical aggression is more likely to occur with males. We know that it's linked with social psychological adjustment. That engaging in overt aggression is associated with really some externalizing types of behaviors, defiant behavior, delinquency, and even impulsivity. We know that relational aggression is more common amongst females, and it's really linked with more internalizing behaviors like depression, anxiety, those types of things. Now, that's not to say that girls will not be physically aggressive, because the research does show that girls can and will be physically aggressive, and guys will and can be relationally aggressive. We just tend to find that guys will typically be more physically aggressive than females. Females will be more relationally aggressive than guys. Now, with both forms of aggression, they are associated with peer rejection in middle and late childhood. But what's really interesting is that they are also associated with being seen as popular. What that tells us is that popular peers, they're going to be high in social visibility, they're going to have a lot of influence, and they're going to have a lot of power, but popularity doesn't necessarily mean that they are well liked, right? They may be rejected, but they're seen as powerful, they're seen as popular, and so the more aggressive someone is, maybe the more popular they are and the more power they are perceived to have. Now, when we talk about that power, what we're really talking about is the idea of bullying. And bullying happens in numbers that are astronomical. In fact, in our culture, there has been a lot of emphasis put on bullying in the last several years. You can't watch TV without seeing anti-bullying commercials, and I think that's a great thing. What we have tended to see is that some reports are over a third, some even higher than that, of children, uh, especially in like 6th through 10th grade, uh, claiming that they've been bullied in the past year. And what's sad about this is that bullying victims are traumatized. Like, we can use the word trauma there. They are emotionally traumatized. And even sometimes somatically traumatized. They may have headaches, abdominal pain. They may end up with sleeping problems. They may have depression or anxiety. All of those things are byproducts of being bullied. So let's talk just very quickly about some of the types of bullying, and then we can wrap this up. Of course, there's the physical bullying that goes along with the aggression that we just talked about. It can accompany verbal bullying. There is the emotional bullying that can be kind of that relational type of thing that we mentioned with relational aggression. There can be racist bullying, using racial slurs, and offensive gestures, making jokes about different cultures. There can be sexual bullying, which may involve unwanted sexual contact or physical contacts. It could include inappropriate comments. Of course, there's verbal bullying, verbal aggression that we just talked about, and maybe the most, maybe not the most common, but definitely the most contemporary of the bullying types is cyberbullying. We are just now seeing an interesting line of research on cyberbullying and the effects of cyberbullying using email, instant messaging, social media to slander, to pick on, to harass another child. Is really happening, and it's taking off really at warp speed. So we know that bullying is a problem. We know that many children are victims of bullies, and we know that about as many children that are victims are actually labeled as bullies. So aggression and bullying go hand in hand, but that is not the end-all be-all of social relationship in middle and late childhood. In the next video, we'll talk about friendship and the importance of friendship during this stage as well.